We are happy to announce that this episode of the SWW show is partially brought to you by Humble Bundle. Well, not really. We are part of the Humble Bundle referral program, and we just wanted to say that if you like really cheap games and maybe helping charity pending the Humble thing going on, all you have to do is go to humblebundle.com/partner equals SWW. That's right, humblebundle.com/partner equals SWW. And you just do your normal stuff, and it just kind of helps us get a couple bucks here and there. Maybe it helps AJ get his lights, maybe it's Mike camera, maybe we actually pay Corey for helping us out. But again, if you're going to go buy games anyway, it might be worth checking out. Hello everyone, and welcome back to one of these interview episodes of the SWW show. I'm Mike. Sorry about my voice being half shot today, but it's better than it was. But today I have with me a special guest, someone from, I think, pretty far north, but actually not relatively that far away. To get us started, do you mind introducing yourself and the game we're here to talk about?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not too far north. I'm on the east coast of Canada, so it's cold here. But yeah, my name is Craig. I'm working on a game called Denizen, which is a open world life sim for PC.
So, I'm actually kind of curious immediately. So yeah, open world life sim, which I think might be the first one of those I've kind of really talked to someone from. Why did you kind of decide to do this? Did you miss that like Second City like MMOs of their mid 2000s? Were there something kind of there? Like why did you kind of start going down this process?
Yeah, like I've never played Second Life, but I was a huge fan of Sims when I was a kid, so I also made, just to branch off real quick, I also made another game called Metro Sim Hustle, which was also kind of a life sim, but I felt like I didn't do it quite right in terms of a life sim. So like the idea was you're this underground train operator, but there was all this life sim stuff built around it. And from the feedback I got, I realized that people are actually more interested in the life sim stuff than the underground train thing. So I learned a lot doing that project, but I thought, okay, if I'm going to do this again, I'm going to do it right, and it's going to be like a solid open world life sim. And so that's kind of like what this game is.
It's very interesting, kind of at least kind of you viewed it differently, kind of why you made this differently. When you're going through this, then was it just like going through this process? We'll kind of get through more of the nitty-gritty gameplay in a second, but was it just like, here are things I liked of Sims, didn't like of Sims? Did you have to start doing kind of more research of the kind of stuff? Kind of what was your thought process kind of starting in the early development kind of this?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not just Sims. Like I take inspiration from everything. Like Grand Theft Auto is a big inspiration, like the open world sandbox type thing. There's a game, you might be familiar with it, Deus Ex, which like it's a first-person shoot, like a sci-fi first-person shooter, but it's so detailed. Like last time I played it, I think was the most recent one, which was several years ago, but I think it's called Mankind Divided. But like this is a first-person shooter, but like you could walk into a room, and if there's like a washer and dryer, you can use it. If there's a desk, you can search it. So I always appreciated that level of detail. Like I'm inspired by, I think many game developers are like this, where it's like you can sort of cherry pick little ideas and nice things you see from every game you play. But definitely after developing Metro Sim Hustle, I felt like I needed to do it right. Like I set out to make a good life sim, and it ended up being sort of this, like it's a pretty good game, but it's not the life sim I wanted to make. And so this is sort of what I've made. And maybe you can kind of relate to this as a developer, where it's like the more experienced you get, not only is your skill going up, but you can work way more efficiently. And plus the things you learn, like the mistakes you make, the things you do right and wrong, you learn from that. And then finally you can sort of go and make the game you actually want to make.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably something valid, that everyone just kind of assumes development is like a straight line of like, oh, I didn't get 10% better here. No, it could literally be like early developers are like, yeah, this one thing that used to take me like 2 weeks, I can now do it in 5 minutes. Like that's
it's so true. 100%. Yeah, I remember like years ago when I started programming, I was like banging my head against the wall trying to do this little game, like for literally for months. And now it's, yeah, absolutely. Now it would be like trivial. I could do it in a day. It's crazy.
That is wild and very accurate, kind of. So when you were going through this, kind of obviously as we're talking the games in pre-early access, so which is going we'll eventually talk about kind of like when it gets to that state, kind of how do you do? Maybe let's start there. How big is the team kind of working on this? I know you're on it. Is there a few other people kind of working with you, or is it more of a more solo?
No, it's just me. So yeah, and it is sort of an ambitious project, but again, after I made another game as well in addition to Metro Sim Hustle called Bartender Hustle. It's kind of like a bartending simulation, and it's like I just learned so many things. Like for bartend, I kind of like to challenge myself now with each project and like do something new and something valuable that I haven't done before. So like with my last project, I did like full controller support with input remapping and localization and sort of more advanced 3D transformations that I wasn't like all the stuff I wasn't familiar with before, but now it's like I can just port it over in a day. So all that stuff that took so much time, I can just port it over in a day. So but with this project, it's an open world. It's set in it's about 8 square kilometer map. So that's new for me. Like I've never developed a game of that scale. And sort of the theme of it is you've got this contrast between this rural sort of countryside living and like the hustle and bustle of a downtown, and kind of like everything in between. You've got like the industrial areas and homes you can buy and apartments you can rent, and there's a port and all these sort of like a suburb, and so all of these sort of different things going on.
Yeah, I want to piece that down then, obviously. So obviously you're coming to this from a solo developer kind of point of view and all that. So one of the big things you said obviously is a wide variety of city typage and housing typage. So obviously my understanding is this map seems to be pretty like you went down and did it with some help with Bryce and like procedurally like tool set to kind of put the set experience kind of from a map. Did you
Yes,
kind of
absolutely. Yeah.
was that always kind of the plan, was to sit down and hand make the city, or did you kind of look into some more like obviously generation dynamic content's like a big thing and has been for the last like half decade really in development, and especially in like indie games kind of where then you have less content to truly make.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for example, like you can drive a car in the game, and I mean, I could spend probably a year developing like a physics-based car controller, but it's a waste of time for me to do that when I can purchase an asset on the store that can do it for me for whatever amount of money. And I can customize it like I've customized it. You know, if there are certain things I didn't like about it, I can go in and rewrite that section of code and make it the way I want. In terms of like the buildings and all that stuff, I make that. The terrain is generated, so it's generated with a plug-in tool that I then customize. But most of it, like I'm a 3D artist. I've worked in the game industry previous to starting this business for 5 or 6 years. So as a 3D artist, so all the buildings, the interiors, and the characters and whatnot, I make that stuff and like the items and whatnot. But it is helpful when you get, say, like as I've mentioned, the car controller. You can use that to your leverage, and it buys so much more time. Like that's a year I don't have to spend, or however much amount of time I don't have to spend creating this car controller, right?
Well, that makes a lot of sense, kind of like as you make stuff and make other games, kind of you could kind of port stuff or kind of learn past experiences.
Yeah.
One of the things, kind of, you said life simulator, I think you kind of mentioned, is the idea of like, at least kind of when I think of it, I think like jobs or kind of ways to make cash. Do you mind talking about kind of what some of your favorite like either mini games in that way, or kind of what systems you kind of put in place to kind of let users kind of and this economy kind of exist in the world?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it is a life simulator, and you've got to make your money. So to give you sort of a broad scope of it, like you're dropped into this world, you pick your character, you dropped into this world, and you've got an apartment, and you need to pay rent in a couple days, and you don't have enough money to pay rent. So it's up to you to make your money. So this is kind of like the initial challenge. Like you've got to go make your money, or else there's actually a homeless shelter in the game that you can go and live at for free. But it kind of has its own caveats. Like you could be sleeping and be jarred awake, or you wake up and some of your items are missing. But you want to make money, so you've got this smartphone you can use. You can apply for a job with this smartphone in your jobs app. So right now I've been working on a job. It's as a pizza cook. So you can get a job as a pizza cook. So if you actually get hired for this job, you can select, do you want to work day shift? Do you want to work night shift? But it's actually up to you to show up to work. So you walk or drive to work. Like it's not like your character just goes off to work and they make the money and you don't see anything happen. Like you're actually in there making the pizza, and you have unlocks. You have. I'm thinking about potential promotion. So like maybe instead of just making pizzas all the time, you could get a promotion or get the opportunity to have a promotion for like a manager. So you're looking after logistical things, or you could maybe eventually own the business, so you could purchase the business and have more like passive income and hiring and managing employees. But there are many other ways to make money. Like, so to give you sort of an idea of like the open-endedness of the game, like say you have a car and you pull into the gas station to fuel up your car. Like you walk into this gas station, it's a survival game, so you've got items you can buy. You've got to keep your player needs topped up, player statistics topped up. So you could make yourself a coffee, you could use the microwave, use the washroom, and you've also got NPCs throughout the game. So like you could go and talk to the store clerk. You can go and like ask them like, how are you doing or whatever. But you can also say like, hey, like, is there some work I can do for you? Is there anything I can do for you? And they might be like, hey, yeah, like here's this quest. Can you do this for me? And they'll pay you for that or give you some type of reward. And so at the end of the day, you can also, once you've made your money, you could go and spend it however you want. You could go to the casino and gamble it. You've got your banking app in the smartphone. You could actually transfer some of your money into a savings account, and you'll actually generate some interest on that money if you leave it alone. You could buy a house, you can rent an apartment, and you can also customize your place as you like. So you can go to a hardware store and buy flooring and wall paint. You can buy furniture. You can go and customize your character. Go to the clothing store and you can buy different clothing and customize your character as you see fit as well.
Obviously, this is a lot of content and fighting systems kind of. How do you kind of, as the developer, kind of sit down and determine A, what you're working on next, and then B, kind of what's missing kind of when you're playing these things, right? Do you just have like a bunch of playtesters? Is it just you kind of sit down and determine it? Like kind of what is your thought process?
Yeah, so I just sort of, I try to make it as polished as I can before I send it out for playtesting. I've got this one good guy in Hungary who's an awesome playtester, and he helps me with that. But right now, like I'm planning to have a demo released in early 2023. So I'm just sort of going through all the essentials right now. Like I've got my list, like work on the map, work on different quests, the phone, and just making sure everything's nice and polished to give you this sort of initial peek at the game. That's for the demo. And then later on in 2023, I'll be doing the early access release. So after the demos are released, I'll really be working on expanding the map and doing all the additional quests and whatnot. But yeah, I just sort of like to break it down day by day and say, okay, I need 4 days tomorrow 4 days next week to work on the map, and 2 days for so on, and another day for whatever else. And I just sort of do it day by day, month by month.
Well, that's very interesting. Kind of the way you kind of it's interesting to me how it is like more. I don't even think you think short termy, but you kind of think in that window of like, okay, what's this next kind of piece to add to it? But like, so let's kind of dig in. So because you mentioned the like pizza thing, right? And you're kind of making these decisions of like how complicated is the system. How are you kind of making sure that you don't get too bogged down in like a sub game versus like the big picture kind of content wise? Is it kind of like you've sat down and be like, I need X jobs, X size of stuff? Or are you fine if all of a sudden now you have half some stuff, but they're really, really detailed?
Yeah, that's a good question. And like maybe you can relate to this again as a developer where it's like some things I'll set out. Like for example, I was just working on a dialogue system yesterday. I was like, okay, this is going to take me a couple days to do. And I did it in 3 hours. I had it done last night, and I was like, okay, so I can do something else today. And that happens. And sometimes something on the other side of the spectrum, sometimes something ends up being way more complicated than I expect. And it's like, okay, maybe we need to simplify this or do something else or whatever it may be, right?
Well, that is, yeah, no, it is something relatable of like, you're like,
yeah,
this, but you're like, but then I thought of this other thing, and then the other thing either does the like, oh, it took me 3 hours, but let's be honest, there's always the inverse, like the
yeah, and sometimes it's Yeah, and sometimes it's just a matter of like, okay, maybe I can't fit this into the demo or the early access release, but like maybe an update later on down the road.
No, that is, it's just, so one of the things that I think shocks me kind of, as you said, is you're a solo developer on this kind of, is the size and scale of what like you're kind of projecting here, kind of like letting people do. Um, as you kind of went through this, I'm kind of curious, kind of your thought process of, as you said, it's going to be demo next year, and then early access tail end of next year is the current plan. How do you kind of, when planning, obviously be as broad since you haven't released it yet, kind of think about like how much content each of these markers should have? Was it like you thought of this as like a scale point of view of this should be a couple hours, or do you think of it like, hey, I think the demo should be 10% of content, or actually should be 50? Like, how are you kind of thinking of that, like almost biz dev part of the equation?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, how it's set up in the demo, you're going to get a small portion of this rural area that I talked about that you'll start off in, and so you get a sample of that, and it's kind of cool because you can actually see like you're sort of cornered off in this little rural area, and you can drive around and walk around and stuff. Like there's this little town that you can walk around in, but you can also see this downtown area off in the distance, like way off in the distance that you can't access. And so that's kind of like how the demo is set up, is like you get sort of the slice of what the world is, but you can also see what the world has to offer, but you can't actually go there. But you do get, for the demo, you will get like you'll be able to customize your character, customize your home. You'll be able to possibly buy a house, like you start off in an apartment, and as I said, you need to pay your rent. If you don't pay your rent, you get kicked out. You'll be able to go to a car dealership. I was just working on like a used car dealership. Not sure you'll actually be able to buy a car, but you might start off with a car so you can at least drive, and you'll be able to do the job. There will be a couple quests, and yeah, so you'll get a good sample of what the world has to offer without giving sort of the full gamut of it.
Well, that's the used car dealership. I got to talk about that for a second. Um, how are you kind? So obviously you have this funness of this isn't real life, so there isn't like true limitation of resources. It's whatever you kind of determine as a limitation factor. Um, to a user, have you kind of made a use versus new car differences like car maintenance, or is it just kind of like, hey, they're gonna buy it from just in this world, they're gonna be used car dealers?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good question. So for sure, that's something I've been thinking about. You'll definitely need to keep your car topped up with fuel. Possibly there could be like an electric car as well. But yeah, you'll need to take care of those things, and you can damage the car as well. So you may need to repair the car. Possibly the performance could be impacted by that. So yeah, and definitely something I've been thinking about is actually upgrading your car. It would be cool also to have like some kind of competitive drag race or something too. But yeah, the cars, it's not just like you buy a car and you drive it and end of story. Like you actually have to maintain it potentially and take care of it. And there's all different types of cars. Like you start off with a crappy like little old truck that's super slow, but you could like you can go to other car dealerships. Like there's new car dealerships in the city that you could go to. You can buy like a full-size truck. You can buy a cargo van. You could buy like a sports car that's super fast, and it actually makes a difference. Like getting around the map, it's big enough that having a fast car actually makes quite a difference in getting around the map.
So this is very interesting. Yeah, I legitimately is mind blowing. Talk to you the amount of systems that sounds like you've actively like worked on or started working on. How long has this been in development, kind of in the more formal way?
To be honest with you, um, like this is kind of coming on the tail end of another game I made, as I've mentioned to you, called Metro Sim Hustle. I released last year in 2021, I think November. But I started working on another game, and I started thinking like, and I was continually getting community feedback like, hey, this game, it doesn't quite deliver the life sim I want. And I was like, man, like I think there's still room here for like a solid life sim, and so I kind of got excited, like, okay, I gotta do this right this time, and so that's sort of where this comes from. And as I said, another game I made called Bartender Hustle, I've learned a lot doing that game, and I thought the time was right to make a good life sim, as it should be.
That sounds kind of like a great kind of way to kind of think of that. So as we said, as we're talking, The game is Denizen.
Denizen, yeah. Yep.
I was having trouble saying it there. Denizen. You could currently wishlist it on Steam. Just so Denizen. Where else should we be sending people if they want to go check out your other work or anything like that?
You can visit the Facebook page. Departure Interactive is the business, the game developer. You could, you could visit the Steam creator page as well. And also www.departureinteractive.com will list all of the games. And that's pretty much it.
Well, Craig, I want to say thank you again for talking to me about Denizen. Wow, you think I could say it one of these times? Talking to me about it. We will look forward to the demo coming out in sometime in sounds like early next year, and then the early access release coming a few months after that. Well, again, thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. Awesome podcast, by the way. I've been listening to your other episodes. Really good stuff.
Thank you.
This podcast was a production of the SWW Show. To learn more, go to theswwshow.com. Remember, you can follow the show on Twitter at the SWW Show. You can follow me at Mikey_Maroney. You can follow AJ at LowSeatBoy. Remember, new episodes premiere on Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time on anchor.fm/SWW and podcast services around the globe.